Good morning, students. Welcome to my session for Standard 10. And in the last session, we were dealing with the lesson 16, plant and hormone hormones. And in the last session, we dealt with the plant hormones, the five major classes of the plant hormones, and the physiological effects of each of the hormones. And we also dealt with the human endocrine glands. Now, in that, we saw the pituitary gland, under which we dealt. Good morning, students. Welcome to science session for standard 10. And in the last session, we were dealing with the lesson 16, plant and animal hormones. And in the last session, we dealt with the plant hormones, the five major classes of the plant hormones and the physiological effects of each of the hormones. And we also dealt with the human endocrine glands. Now, in that, we saw the pituitary gland, under which we dealt with the hormones secreted by the anterior pituitary lobe and posterior pituitary lobe, right? And we are going to continue with this lesson today. Today we are going to see the thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, pancreas, adrenal gland, and about the reproductive gland, and at the last, the thymus glands. Let's go into the session, children. Now we'll continue with the lesson, and we are going to see thyroid gland now. Now this thyroid gland consists of two lobes. So these are the two lobes on either side of the trachea. So this is the trachea. You can see here trachea, isn't it? So on either side of the trachea, you can see two distinct lobes, isn't it? And these two distinct lobes are connected together by a narrow tissue which is called as the isthmus. Now I have rounded and shown you, isn't it, at the middle? So this is called as the isthmus. And if you see this gland is composed of the glandular follicles. Now we have learned about different types of tissue systems, isn't it? So this gland is composed of the glandular follicles, and these are also lined. If you see the lining, the outer covering, it is nothing but the cuboidal epithelium. And I said about the follicles, isn't it? And this follicles is filled within colloidal material which is called as the thyroglobulin. And this hormone that is secreted by the thyroid gland is called as the thyroid hormone, and it consists of an amino acids which is called as tyrosine and iodine. And particularly the hormones that is secreted by the thyroid gland is named as triiodothyronine, that is T3, and tetraiodothyronine, that is nothing but the thyroxine, which is T4. So these are the two important hormone that is secreted by the thyroid gland. And if you see the functions of this thyroid gland, now this helps in the production of the energy by maintaining BMR. Now what is this BMR? BMR is nothing but the basal metabolic rate, the metabolic activities that takes place in the body. It maintains this metabolic rate and it involves in the production of the energy. And it also helps in maintaining the normal body temperature. Now body temperature is very, very important, isn't it? So it helps in maintaining the normal body temperature, and it also influences the activity of the central nervous system. And this also involves in the control of the growth of the body and the bone formation, right? And if you see the normal physical, mental, and the personality development is mainly depends upon this thyroid gland secretion. And this is also known as the personality hormone because it is essential for the normal physical, mental, and the personality development. Due to this reason, it is called as the personality hormone, and it also regulates the cell metabolism. So these are the functions of the thyroid gland. Now let's see the thyroid dysfunction. Dysfunction in the sense if it fails to secrete than the normal level of the hormones, that is called as the thyroid dysfunction. Then this leads to the following diseases. The first one is the hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism in the sense it is due to the decreased secretion of the thyroid hormone. Now the abnormal condition occurs. This leads to the diseases which is called as goiter, cretinism, and myxedema. Now look into the picture, children. Here you can see the condition of goiter. This is due to the inadequate supply of the iodine in our diet. Now we said that the iodine and the thyrosin is essential for the hormone secretion, that is the thyroid hormone secretion, isn't it? So if the diet is inadequate in the iodine, then this leads to goiter. Now, especially if you see the Himalayan regions, due to the low level of iodine in the salt, the thyroid diseases, that is called as the goiter, is very familiar, and this is nothing but the swelling in the neck in the thyroid gland takes place, and this is nothing but the goiter. Next is the cretinism. Cretinism is also due to the decreased secretion of the thyroid hormone in children, if you see. Now, if you see the symptoms of this diseases, there will be a stunt growth, that is decrease in the height of the people. Mental defect can also be seen, lack of the skeletal development, and deformation of the bones, that is bow legs and the hands can also be seen, and they are called as cretins. Those peoples are called as cretins. Next is the myxedema. Myxedema is caused due to the deficiency again in the thyroid hormones, especially in the adults. And if you see, these people will have increase in the body weight. They'll be very bulgy. Mentally, they'll be very sluggish. And puffiness in the face can be seen, especially in the face and also in the hands. If you see, this can be visible clearly. The next disorder is nothing but the hyperthyroidism. Now, this is due to the increase in secretion of the thyroid hormone, and this leads to a disease which is called as the Graves' diseases. The Graves' diseases. The symptoms, if you see, the eyeballs get protruded outward, increase in the metabolic rate, the body temperature will also become very high, and loss of the body weight, sometimes nervousness, a lot of sweating. These are the diseases that is caused due to the thyroid dysfunction. Next, we'll move to the parathyroid gland. Now here you can see 4 lobes on the thyroid hormone, isn't it? So these are nothing but the parathyroid gland. And if you see these 4 oval shaped bodies that is present, so these are situated in the posterior surface of the thyroid gland, and these are helpful in the secretion of parathormone. Now, if you see the functions of parathormone, now we need the calcium and the phosphorus level should be maintained in our body, isn't it? So for the metabolism to take place, isn't it? So this parathormone regulates the calcium and phosphorus metabolism in the body, and this will act on the bones and the kidneys, because calcium is essential for the bones, isn't it? So they act on the bones and the kidneys and intestine, so they also maintain the body calcium levels. Now, if you see the dysfunctions of parathyroid gland, this leads to the diseases which is called as the tetany. Now, why there is a decrease in the secretion of the parathyroid gland? Sometimes the parathyroid gland is removed along with the removal of the thyroid gland in some cases. Now, this will lead to the decrease in the secretion of the parathormone, now which leads to the disease which is called as the tetany, which is nothing but the contraction of the muscles in the face, hands, feet, etc. And if you see, sometimes the limb muscles get painful cramps. Sometimes cramps are nothing but the sudden muscle pain that you get. So these are the symptoms of the dysfunction of parathyroid gland. Now the next hormone that we are going to see is the pancreas. Now pancreas, if you see, it is an elongated, it will be yellowish in color, and it is situated below the stomach, in the loop of the stomach you can say, and this acts both as an exocrine and endocrine gland. Now we said that the exocrine glands have specific duct and endocrine glands are the ductless glands, isn't it? So this acts both as an exocrine and the endocrine gland. And if you see the exocrine pancreas, it secretes the pancreatic juice, and this is very, very useful in the digestion process, isn't it? Now, while if you see the endocrine gland, and this is made up of the islets of Langerhans, right? And if you see the islets of Langerhans, this consists of the alpha cells and the beta cells. Now, what is this alpha cell secretes? The alpha cell secretes the glucogen and the beta cell secretes the insulin. If you see the functions of the pancreatic hormones, which acts as an exocrine gland, we said, isn't it? Now this helps in maintaining a balance between the insulin and the glycogen, which is essential to maintain the blood glucose concentration, right? And insulin, if you see, especially this helps in the conversion of the glucose into the glycogen, and this is stored in the liver or in the skeletal muscles, and it also helps in the transportation of the glucose into the cells for its metabolic activities, and this decreases the concentration of the glucose in the bloodstream. If you see glycogen, these are helpful in breaking of the glycogen into glucose into the liver, and this also helps in increasing the glucose level in the blood. And the deficiency of the insulin leads to the disease which is called as the diabetes mellitus. And if you see the diabetes mellitus, the symptoms, if you see, especially there will be an increase in the blood sugar level, and excess of glucose in the urine is excreted. Frequent urination will be there, which is also called as polyuria. Increased thirst, which is called as the polydipsia, in the sense the person gets thirsty often, right? And increase in the appetite, that is polyphagia. So these are the symptoms of the diseases, that is diabetes mellitus, and this is due to the deficiency of the insulin, which is secreted by the alpha cells. So the next gland that we are going to see is the adrenal gland. Now this adrenal gland is situated above the kidney. Here you can see that above the kidney the adrenal gland is present, isn't it? And this is also called as the suprarenal gland. And if you see the outer part of the adrenal gland, it consists of cortex. Here you can see the outer part consists of the adrenal cortex, and the inner part is nothing but the adrenal medulla. And if you see the functions of the adrenal cortex, this cortex consists of 3 layers of cells: zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. And if you see the hormones that are secreted by the adrenal glands, these are classified into glucocorticocortis and mineralocorticocortis. So these are the classifications of the hormones. And we'll see the functions of these classifications one by one. The first one is the function of the adrenocortical hormone. And we said that it consists of 2 hormones, isn't it? That is glucocorticocortis. Now, this is secreted by the zona fasciculata. And if you see the hormones are the cortisol and corticosterone, right? And this regulates the cell metabolism. It stimulates the formation of the glucose from the glycogen in the liver, and it helps as an anti-allergic or the anti-inflammatory agent, right? And if you see the functions of the mineralocorticocortis, these are secreted by the zona glomerulosa. Now we said that it consists of 3 layers, isn't it? Zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. Now this mineralocorticocortis secreted by the zona glomerulosa, and the hormones is called as the aldosterone, right? And this helps in the reabsorption of the sodium ions, especially from the renal tubules, from the kidney tubules, you can say. And this causes increased secretion of the potassium ions, and it regulates the electrolyte balance, that is the fluid balance, osmotic pressure, blood pressure, etc. I mean, it regulates almost all the main functions of the blood. And if you see the electrolyte balance, now we said that the sodium and the potassium ion should be balanced in the blood, isn't it? So this helps in regulating the electrolyte balance. And body fluid should also be maintained, and the osmotic pressure and the blood pressure in the circulation of the blood is very, very important, and these are essentially regulated by these hormones. Next we'll move to the adrenal medulla. Now this is composed of a special type of cells which is called as the chromaffin cells. Now these cells are rich in the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves, And the hormones that are secreted by the adrenal medulla is nothing but the epinephrine and norepinephrine. And this epinephrine is also called as the adrenaline, and norepinephrine is called as the noradrenaline. And this together, if you see, that is the adrenaline and the non-adrenaline together is called as the emergency hormone. Why it is called as emergency hormone? Because these are produced in a condition where you are very stressed or emotion, right? If you are very stressed, if you are very emotion, and these hormones are secreted, so it is called as the emergency hormone. And this is also referred as in flight, fright and fight hormone. Why? Because when you're stressed or emotion, either you fly, isn't it? You fly from the situation, you escape from the situations, or you get frightened because of that situation, or you fight against the situation, isn't it? So that depends upon your situations. The emotions that is revealed, it depends upon your situations and stresses, isn't it? So these are secreted during that period, so it is called as the emergency hormone. And if you see the functions of the epinephrine, now we said that there are two hormones that are secreted by the adrenal medulla, isn't it? Now if you see especially the functions of the adrenal gland, it promotes the conversion of the glycogen to glucose, especially in the liver, and it increases the heartbeat and blood pressure. It causes the dilation of the pupil in the eye, and it also decreases the blood flow through the skin. So these are the symptoms normally that we get in the emergency or in the stress or the emotion state, isn't it? And the functions of the norepinephrine will also be similar to that of epinephrine, isn't it? Because these together are called as the hormones, emergency hormones. Next, we'll move to the reproductive gland. The next one is the reproductive gland. Those are nothing but the gonads. And if you see, there are two types. One is testes and ovaries. Testes are present in male and ovaries are present in female. And if you see the testes, these are the reproductive gland, especially in the males, and this consists of the seminiferous tubules. And there are two cells that is responsible, which forms the endocrine part of the testis, that is the Leydig cells and the Sertoli cells. Now, Leydig cells forms the endocrine part, I said before, and they secrete an hormone which is called as testosterone. And if you see the functions of testosterone, and this influences the production of the sperm, and this stimulates the protein synthesis, and this is also responsible for the development of the secondary characters, that is the growth of the hair on the body, face, and the change in the voice when you attain the puberty. The next one is the ovary, and ovary is present in the female gonads. And if you see the secretion, there are two important secretions, that is the estrogen and progesterone. And estrogen is produced by an follicle which is called as the Graafian follicles, and the progesterone is formed or produced by the corpus luteum. And both are formed during the ovulation period, you can say. And if you see the functions of the estrogen, and this brings about the changes that all occurs during the puberty, and this is also involves in the formation of the egg. Secondary characters, that is the deep, you can say high pitch voice that is developed during the puberty period. Now all the changes that occurs during the puberty period. Now if you see the functions of the progesterone, these are responsible for the menstrual cycle, and this involves in the development of the embryo, is very essential for the formation of the placenta. The next one is the thymus. You can see in the picture, these are the thymus gland, and this is a part of the endocrine gland, and it, you can say partly it is also an part of the thyroid gland. You have a lymph system, isn't it? And in the last class we have learnt about the lymph system, isn't it? So this is also a part of a lymphoid gland, and this is especially present in the upper part of the chest. Clearly you can say that it is at the lower end of the trachea. The hormone that is secreted is the thymosin. If you see the functions of thymosin, it fight against the diseases, that is it plays a very important role in the defense mechanism. That is, it is very effective on the immune system, if you say immune function, in the production of the different types of lymphocytes, and these lymphocytes are essential for the defense mechanism, isn't it? So these are the functions of the thymosin. So with this thymus gland, we come to the end of the lesson, children. So far in this lesson, we have learnt about the plant hormone and the human endocrine gland, isn't it? In the plant hormone, remember children, we have learnt about auxins, cytokinin, gibberellins, abscisic acid and ethylene. And in the human endocrine system, we have learnt about the pituitary gland, and we have learnt about the hormones that is secreted by the anterior pituitary lobe and posterior pituitary lobe. And next is the thyroid gland, parathyroid, pancreas, adrenal gland, and at the last the reproductive gland and the thymus gland, isn't it? So that's the end of this lesson. Homework for today is that you should be thorough with the adrenal gland, especially the functions of the adrenocortical hormone and the functions of the adrenal medullary hormone. The next question is that you have to be thorough with the functions of the estrogen and the progesterone. So these are the two questions that you have to be thorough with, and you have to write these two questions along with the diagram of the adrenal gland in your classwork. And in the next class, we will deal with the new biology chapter, children. Till then, take care. Thank you, children.